This is Breaking MedTech. I'm Ryan. That's Cope. For those of you listening, he's wearing a beautiful robin's egg blue shirt.
It brings out the bloodshot in my eyes, I'm told. So that's
yeah,
good.
red and blue. You're super white. It's like an American flag. Yeah. So I'm going to hand it over to you because this is your baby.
Well, today's topic, I'm pointing. I was giving Ryan the. I'm looking at you with the two-finger thing pointing at me and then him, because we're going to talk about today show, don't tell. And I would say maybe it's show and tell, but understand that having had 20-some years of sales and 20-some years of making mistakes thinking people actually pay attention to what I say, which, no offense to me or anybody else, nobody does, right? Like, and it's not because I'm not some interesting, charismatic person. I'd love to think I am. But it's because the human brain does not learn and remember that way. And so I'm going to give you some statistics, Ryan, that I have researched and been trained on and experienced. So does that sound cool? Because that makes us sound like technically really experts on this.
I like to think that we are. So yes.
Okay. So
Straight facts.
Yeah, straight facts, homie. So Edgar Dale, about 70 years ago, psychologist, did a bunch of research on what people remembered based on presentations, right? And here are the rules that he came up with, the statistics that his data showed. And this has been replicated in multiple studies. And I'm just going to read it to you. We remember about 10% of what we hear, 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, 50% of what we see and hear, and then sort of 80% of what we personally experience, and then 95% of what we teach others. But most importantly are those first numbers. 10% of what we read. Think of the PowerPoint presentations you have stood through filled with words, right? So that's part one of what we remember when somebody, and technically according to Edgar Dale, we're 3 times as effective when we see something at remembering it than when we read it. But we're still only 30%. Mm-hmm. And it has a half-life. So there's a bunch of other data that shows, and I'm pulling this up now, 50% of what was said to us we remember immediately. 50%. So that means you say to me 2 great things, I've already forgotten one of them as soon as we're done, right? The next day, I remember 25% of what you said to me. And a week later, I'm lucky if I remember 10%. So we don't synthesize what's hitting at us very well, and we don't retain what we did synthesize for very long. So the reason this is important is when you're presenting a product or presenting a concept or showing and selling, showing is way better than telling. And you can goose those numbers considerably, but understand that we both have had people say this, particularly people who aren't in sales, but I've actually had some salespeople say this. Well, I told them that a month ago. And you want to say like, hey, dude, the clock ticked and ran out. They don't remember it, right? Because what were you doing 30 days ago? You're like, I don't know. Man.
It reminds me of like, I've said it before, I'll say it again. My dad always would tell me, like, hey, you're not that important, buddy. No, like, that's not how it works. Nobody's going to remember what you said 30 days. And he was talking in a sales perspective. Mm-hmm. He wasn't telling me I wasn't important, but, like, you're not that important. You're not top of mind. You're not like, they're not going home thinking like, oh man, I got to call Ryan.
Right.
That's just not the case. Like they don't. And then at a certain point, you just got to you basically start all over again.
Yeah. Yeah. You actually probably do. So there are ways to goose your numbers there, right? So getting people, I have found the best way to goose those retention numbers, both immediately and over time, like extending the shelf life of it, of the concept, if you will, is to get them to talk about the problem they have So that, because everybody remembers, oh, I can't stand this. This bugs me. I hate it. It's driving me nuts. I wish I could fix it tomorrow or today or yesterday would have been better, right? That's imprinted into our DNA almost. So we remember that. So like you'd actually, I believe, you'd rather be associated with the problem that you solve as opposed to your solution, because people might remember, you just go, hey man, what was that thing you said? Because remember I had all the headaches? Because they'll remember the headaches, right? Right?
Yeah, I mean, you threw out a stat that people, what was it, 80% personally, like you remember 80% of what you personally experienced, and then you remember 90-some% of what you've personally experienced and retold to people.
And teach, yeah.
And teach, right? And like it's almost like the idea of like when you're talking about the problem or when you're doing that with someone, you're almost better off. For me, I always like talking about like storytelling is like you're almost better off when you're describing what you do and showing what you're doing, tying it to the visual experiences that they've had personally, where they're going like in describing that frustration and describing everything they do, because that's probably going to help them retain it a little bit more. If you're going like, hey, widget A is going to directly impact that time that you had a horrible day and you got in your car and were crying in the rain while and
Right.
and they're going to go like, oh yeah. And it imprints on them.
Exactly. And you mentioned this a while ago that like it evokes an emotion, right? And it does. And so here, let me give you a couple examples of visuals that evoke emotion. And then we'll talk to people about, especially in med device, particularly emerging early stage med device, how they can use this understanding to increase their odds of both success and sales and everything, right? So you and I were talking beforehand. Here's a couple of images that sort of everybody knows. Everybody remembers what it looked like when planes hit towers. They saw it and remember it evoked an emotion, right? But even if it didn't evoke an emotion, you'll remember it. Everybody remembers the picture of Jack Ruby shooting Lee Oswald that was in Life magazine, because it's burned into your memory, right? Visuals are stickier than words. They're not, doesn't automatically mean you're going to have that image burned into your mind. Those are world renowned pictures that will stick in people's heads. Once you see it, you really don't forget it. Your product might not be that sticky, right? But think about that. Like, do you remember think how hard it is to memorize Shakespeare? It's hard, right? It's not impossible. People do it, but it's hard. But I can put a picture in front of you, and it doesn't have to have. It could be in a different language, and you're like, oh my gosh. And the best. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was going to say, like, you want like a great example would be something that you and I will appreciate. I could memorize Shakespeare. In fact, I did like I remember in high school I had to memorize Shakespeare. I don't remember a bit of it. You know what I can vividly picture in my mind? When Jordan is jumping in the air, pumping his fist after score. What was it? Was it against Utah?
No, beat Cleveland Cavaliers
over
Craig Elo. Yeah.
All right. So like, and I literally could picture him in the air. Yes.
Right.
Jumping. That happened way before I memorized.
1986.
I wasn't alive.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what. So yeah, that's a perfect example. I thought you were going to go with this one, but here's another one. Think of how many really good pharma ads you see, and they could do it in German. And I don't speak German. I'm like, oh yeah, that person has eczema. It must suck to go to the beach. It must suck to be out in the sun. To have the loose clothing, like it sucks because I can tell. I can look at this picture and whatever the thing is they're going to inject in somebody, it must make them able to run into the ocean without fear or pain or embarrassment. Because I've seen a million of these commercials. I don't have any of that. I don't have eczema. I don't have those things. Yet it's sticky, right? So when we talk to med device companies about show, we shouldn't say don't tell, but we say show and tell would be good, right? But show. And then when you're not sure, show more, right? Because it's much stickier in their brains. So, right. To this, like, what are we missing? What have we not? Because I was going to say, then I can tell you some pitfalls you have when you show too. But I want to hear, did we miss anything so far?
No, I don't think so. I really wanted to make a joke about if I take Cialis, I get to sit in a tub with my wife looking out at the sunset. I don't know how that's going to work. We're in our own tubs. So no, I don't think you missed anything. I guarantee you, as I said, that anyone listening right now is like, I know that exact commercial.
Right.
It's burned in our heads.
And part of it is brilliant marketing, but let's chill with the brilliance.
Yeah,
part of it is it's a great visual.
Yeah, it's a great visual. It's a ridiculous visual, but it's a great visual, sure.
And memorable. And we've talked about being memorable, which is what we talked about. Like, you want people to remember something. Yeah. And your odds are increased when you show things and then also follow up. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I would say, I know we're going to talk about the pitfalls of showing people and what can happen when you do show people, especially if you're an early company. But I'm a big fan of people showing things because I've seen enough companies where they're like 5 or 6 years in and they've never actually publicly showed anybody anything. Maybe they've done it in a handful of demos, but I had a founder once say to me, like, we've been around for 6 years. Nobody knows who we are. And I responded back to him. I was like, you've never showed. Your website doesn't have a picture of what you do. It doesn't have a video of what you do. You don't have anything on social media that shows what you do. I've scoured the internet for videos. You've been at world-renowned. You've been to LSI. You've been to world-renowned conferences. There's not a video of your product on the internet. How would anybody remember who you are?
Right. And that's a really good example. And we've seen or heard this hundreds of times, and frankly been guilty of it. Like, I've been, I'm certain I've been guilty of saying not showing enough. We're all probably guilty of it, but we are trying to impress upon people that we find that's underestimated most times. The farther you are away from customers are just like the rest of us. They're busy. Tony Kornheiser jokes he's unburdened by memory. I would say treat your customers like Tony Kornheiser. They don't remember anything, and we'll talk about that in one of our episodes too. So here's the pitfalls. Though you say, okay, Cope, Ryan, you guys seem smart. Cope, your eyes are bloodshot. It means you must work hard. So you must know what you're talking about. Okay, so we're going to start showing it, right? That's better. But understand, like, there are some pitfalls that go with it. And the classic one that everybody in orthopedic and spine and operating room med device, the mistake they make is pulling their new product, their trocar, their stapler, whatever, out of their bag and handing it to a doctor. And the doctor's like, well, what's this? I don't think the hand fits her valve, and I should tweak this, and I don't think this is long enough. I doubt it. Like, what's this do? Hey, Jim, take a look at this. And you're like, I got about a 12% chance of, and it's dwindling, right? So you do run that risk. So that's one that we've, including me many times, been guilty of, right?
Can I make an argument against that? Because I'm a big, like this... You know what when I hear stories like that, now take this with a grain of salt. I don't think that doctor was ever going to buy it. I don't think that practitioner, that nurse, that educator, that whatever, like, if they just start immediately ripping it apart, immediately, you hand it to that, and like, it's like one of those things of like, I don't think that person's ever going to buy it. And that's okay. There are people on this earth who aren't going to buy it. And I get, like, what I would tell you, why I say that is because I think the fear of that happening is way more damaging than it actually happening.
Okay. I disagree, but that's okay. That's all right. I think you make good points. Here's the counterpoint that I would be insane if somebody, if I said, hey, bring that thing out, I want to look at it, and then they spend 10 minutes effing around, And I'm like, dude, show me the thing.
Oh, no,
right?
I agree about, like, you have to show it. I'm just saying, like, that idea that when you hand someone something or you show someone something, because I've been in those meetings where, like, we've shown someone something and we did a good job showing it, and they just immediately start, cover your kids' ears, shitting on it.
Oh, well, yeah, that's that. But you did the right thing.
I did the right thing.
So that's what I'm saying is, like, I've learned how to, because look, you know as well as I do, the only more impatient people on the planet than surgeons are maybe pilots. I don't know, right?
I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone more impatient, impatient than a surgeon.
Their toe is set to tap, right? Like it's just constantly tapping. Let's go, right? One of my favorite was Dr. Steve Powers. He was like, come on, let's go. I'm in his office having lunch with him. I'm like, relax. He didn't relax. But like, I think you have to say, and I've taught reps this, and because I had to train myself, is I'm going to show it to you, but I need 30 seconds to tell you about the rationale, right?
Okay. Yeah. No,
and they're like, okay, cool, you got 15 seconds, right? And like, but you're trying to slow down the pace of the play to the point where they can maybe retain some of it before they get their hot, sweaty hands all over whatever it is you're selling.
Okay.
So does that? Yeah, we're kind of.
No, I'm in alignment with that, but I like what I don't like is when people like the fear of going like, I'm going to show this to someone, I'm going to spend 30 seconds, do my pitch, and then I'm going to hand it over. And the first thing that person's going to do after I do my 30-second pitch is start shitting on it. Right. Like that's going to happen. I'd be like, I don't know what to tell you. Then don't show it to anybody.
I do know what to tell them. Go find a job in customer service.
Yeah, that's just
going to happen. Sales.
Yeah,
who cares? Like honestly, who cares?
Yeah.
But that's a different. Okay, so that is a concern I think people have. So what I would say, and you're good at this, is let's think about how we're going to show, and what we're going to show, but we must ultimately show something because it's more memorable. And I mean, don't you think like?
Yeah,
right?
I'm going to give you a good example. Just because contractually speaking, I'm obligated to bring him up on every single show. My father. So ASR, okay, the retractor.
It's a retractor. It's a tight retractor designed for rapid deployment in belly wounds, and it's a company we know. We like their product. We like the company. They don't pay us anything unless they want to. But so Ryan's bringing that up.
Right. Okay. So it's very lightweight compared to what's the retractor that
Bookwalter.
Bookwalter. Okay. Yep. And so showing it, right? My dad loves showing it, and the point is he carries it around. You know those little like zip, the little backpacks, the string backpacks.
Yeah.
Right? He carries it around in a string backpack, or he'll carry it around in his bag.
Is that just because it's convenient, Ryan?
No, there's a plan to it, right? And he goes, during it, they'll be like, all right, he's like, all right, I'm going to show it to you. And then he'll pull the bag, or he'll pull it out of his bag. And the first thing that they do, it's planned. He's talked to me about it, is the first thing that they do is, wait, that's the retractor? Because the Bookwalter weighs 100 pounds, and this thing I think weighs like a cup.
I thought it was like 2 pounds.
I think it's like 2.4 pounds. Yeah. And then with like the different attachments, it might weigh a little bit more, but it's significantly less weight. So already he's planned out, I'm going to show them a super big feature and benefit to this thing without saying a word. I'm going to pull it out of my bag because it all fits in there, and I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to put it on the table, and then he has, I'm sure, a 15 to 30-second thing of going, here's what's great about it. Designed, it goes together super simple. These clasp on super simple. You can adjust them around doing this. If he doesn't have certain blades there or whatever, hey, we carry lighted blades, everything. And in 30 seconds, he's shown them stuff. He's actually showed how it works. He's put it together. He's done everything. And then he hands it over to them, and he lets them play with it, and then he fields questions.
Right, because he has prepped it, set the stage, and delivered with a little bit of wow factor, right? That's why he's
Yeah.
really good.
He's the PT Barnum of medical device sales.
Which is a compliment here. And I would say, like, it's a hell of a product, right? It shows well, but him setting it up makes it more memorable than it would have been on its own, and it was already memorable to its credit, right? So that's an example of your dad has thought this through, has done it, and has watched the reaction and knows now I'm memorable. This is memorable. Mm-hmm. They're going to remember this, and then he's off to the races. Yeah. That doesn't mean everybody buys it, but everybody then remembers it or something to it, right?
I get everyone remembers it, and he's very good at doing that. But like he's the opposite, right? Where some people would go like, "Hey, I don't want to show it until I can actually show it in my perfect ideal scenario." He, to a fault, I've gotten in arguments with him of going like, "Will you not show it yet? Will you And he's like, "No. If I'm going in there, I got one shot. I'm going to show it to them. If I'm walking into a hospital, I know I'm meeting with a surgeon. I got one shot to wow them. I got 30 seconds. Here's what we're doing."
So think about what you just said, which, by the way, you can agree or disagree with him. It's ungodly effective for him, right? He says, no matter what, I'm going to show them, right? Which is our exact point. Because Dominic and the rest of us know that if you show them, it's more effective than telling them. Right? And so he didn't say it that way, but that's inherently what he's saying. So, so I think like our take homes for people, particularly the people who aren't in sales, who are creating these great, cool products that we talk to about all the time, right? Is never underestimate showing is way better than telling.
All the time.
Right. And thinking about showing and sort of testing it and prepping for it and then saying, okay, so let me show you the product and here's what we are thrilled about, or this is what we think is great about it. It's much better to say, here's why I think you'll like it based on what you told me, but that's a whole different setup. But like, that's more memorable. And again, I'll give you the numbers. If we're watching a PowerPoint, we remember 10%, and this is after it. We remember 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, 30% of what we see, 50% of what we see and hear, and then 95% when we see, hear, read, and teach. But remember, this has a half-life. So you could knock it out of the park. Fireworks could be going off. But like that half-life, that what would you call it? Like it just, let's just say it dwindles quickly over time. And you have to follow up on things like that to constantly remind them to embed it into their brains.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
I'm gonna do something that you often accuse me not of doing. I'm gonna make this super tactical for everybody. Okay. If you're launching a new product, or if you've already had a product and it's not going as well, I think you should sit down for 4 hours. Okay. Block out a day. And get on a whiteboard, write a piece of paper, do whatever, and literally go, what does our sales process look like now? And when do we show people the product? Physically show people the product. And then go, how can we show them it sooner? And that doesn't mean that you do it in an uncontrolled, willy-nilly way. If it means that you have to do virtual demos, then you go, all right, we got to do virtual demos. Then what I would say to you is like, figure out the best way to do virtual demos, right? But figure out the best way to show the product as soon as possible. Literally work it into your strategy, work it into your sales process, work it into your sales plan, call it whatever you want. Be extremely tactical about it. It's like you're planning. I don't like doing the thing where people are like, sales are like war, but it's kind of like planning a strategy. It's not war. It's like planning a strategy, like you're putting together a strategy. So figure out in your strategy, how can I get someone to see the product as soon as possible in the best way possible?
Right. And we've talked about this in other podcasts. That's why iPhones, smart devices, things like Riverside, things like again, none of these are, I wish they were sponsors. None of them are. But this lets you bring visual earlier in the sales process more effectively, and in some cases, in an evergreen fashion, so that it sells while you're not there. But the whole point of this is show, and figure out how you show best, but show it. Do not assume anybody remembers anything we say.
No.
So I think we covered it.
We covered it.
And I want to say it's Ryan. See, I don't remember anything. Is it Ryan?
It's actually Randy.
Randy. Okay.
Yeah, it's Randy.
Well, thank you, Randy Ryan. This has been Breaking MedTech.
Thanks, Martin. Bye.